Welcome back. You're watching HLN News Now. Mike Galanos. This hour, we're bringing you special coverage of the Jodi Arias murder trial. Our team of experts are standing by. And as we look at this, there have been so many huge moments. But one of the biggest moments of this trial was when the prosecutor in round 2 against Jodi Arias really zoned in on the gas cans and how that could lead to a premeditation theory. Let's bring in our experts. Beth Karras back with us, attorney and legal correspondent for In Session on True TV. And joining us once again, John Manuelian, a great defense attorney. All right, let's zone in on these gas cans, Beth, and let's set the scene again, because Jodi Arias, again, on the stand 17 days, and at the end of the day on Thursday, here comes Juan Martinez, and he is loaded for bear, questioning her about the pedophile claims against Travis Alexander. These gas cans, her finger injury, but what about the gas cans? Because that's key to proving premeditation, or one of his keys, isn't it?
Yes, he wanted to show that she went prepared to have at least a full tank of gas in cans in her trunk so that she could get through the state of Arizona without stopping at any gas station, where sometimes there are videos and there could be, you know, the transaction on record. Get through the state, have no sign that she was ever in Arizona, that shows she planned to be there and to be there unnoticed. Got it.
John Manuelian, as the jury members are resting today and they may be thinking about this trial, do you think gas cans, you think that's something that's in their mind? And do you think gas can equals premeditation? You think they're thinking of that as well?
Absolutely. And you know that, Mike, based on the questions, we already saw the windows to their attitudes and how they're leaning right now. They're not believing Jodi Arias. And the gas cans are just another problem that Jodi Arias has. She doesn't have a reasonable explanation for it. Look, the defense could always say that she didn't want to stop by seedy gas stations, and she was doing that as a precaution not to get into a situation where she would be in danger while she was traveling. But you know, with the lies that she said, there's so many of those lies, it's hard to swallow anything that Jodi Arias says right now. So that's really a big problem for the defense.
Beth, looking forward, it's Juan Martinez against Jodi Arias when court resumes. Where does he go? What can we expect to see?
Well, you know, he can ask her a lot of questions related to the questions the jurors ask, and there are 220 of them covering all kinds of themes. So he can go back to the shooting itself, he can go to the gun, he can talk about the alleged burglary, I suppose, more on the injury to her hand. I'm not sure he had finished that point when court broke last Thursday. So he still has a lot of ground to cover if he chooses to do so, and I think that what he's trying to do right now, at least what we saw in the hour or so that he was questioning her, or less, last Thursday, is that he's trying to show that she's lying to this jury from the witness stand. Even though she admits to previous lies, she says everything she's saying from the witness stand is the truth, and he's trying to show that that is not so at all.
Got it. Okay, again, just to reiterate, 220 questions from the jury, more potentially to come. And here's one of my favorite parts of the show. Rapid fire responses from our trial expert team. One word to describe the jury questions. Let's start with Jane Velez-Mitchell. Jane, one word.
Damning.
Damning. Gene Casares.
Fair.
Fair. Beth.
Thorough.
Thorough. And John Manuelian.
Predictable.
Predictable. There you go. Each will give us the full reason for their one-word answer. So much more coming up. Keep it right here. Rapid fire responses. One word to describe the jurors' questions. Jane, you said damning. Talk to me.
Damning, because it seems clear they do not buy her story. But let's break it down. Clearly, it seems they don't buy her going into a fog. They believe, for their questions, I would extrapolate that Jodi Arias remembers stabbing Travis Alexander all those times, but is pretending she doesn't remember. They also, it would appear to me, do not buy her story of Travis being a pedophile, which is very bad news for Jodi Arias, because evil comes to the word that comes to mind when I think of making up a story about somebody being a pedophile when they're not. But I personally noticed fewer questions about premeditation, and I think that's significant. So I think this woman's definitely going to be convicted. The question is there enough reasonable doubt? Perhaps. Sure, you could buy, yeah, she staged a burglary at her grandpa's house to get the gun. Sure, you could buy, she filled up the gas cans to cover her tracks in Arizona. But is there enough reasonable doubt there where maybe they have a problem with that?
Got it. Gene, you said fair.
I did, because they could have asked no questions at all. And although the questions definitely show their state of mind is that we don't believe you, they're asking her, tell us again, give us your side of the story again. That's very fair of this jury. They don't have to write all these questions. They're choosing to listen to her and hear her side again.
Okay, fair. Was the skank question fair? That's for a different day. Beth, you said thorough. Talk to me.
Well, 220 questions is pretty darn thorough, I think. However, they did not ask about the magazines that were being passed to a friend to try to get a coded message to a witness. That's the one thing left out. One has to wonder if it got past the jury and they didn't understand the significance from the state's point of view. But we also have to remember that these questions do not represent all of the jurors. It's not like they all got together and said, let's come up with a list of 220. Approximately half of the 18 jurors submitted questions, so these questions represent those jurors who submitted the questions.
Great point to make. John, you said predictable. Why?
Well, Mike, is there anybody that you think that believes Jodi? She started this case with a mountain of lies, so she already started behind the 8 ball. It doesn't shock me that these jurors don't believe what she's saying. And not only does she have a mountain of evidence, she has a mountain of lies to overcome in this case. So to me, the questions were not surprising at all, and they were predictable.
Got it. Okay, great job on that front. When we come back, we're going to talk about the length of this trial. Calendar days, 69 days, believe it or not, opening statements. The beginning of this trial almost seems like a lifetime ago. Check this out. Again, people were just getting over New Year's when this trial began. January 2nd, that's when we started. 69 days later, we are still going strong. 30 trial days, and Jodi Arias, as we've mentioned many times, has been on the stand 17 days, and she'll be back on the stand to go at it against the prosecutor, Juan Martinez. More fireworks to come in this case. Who knows how long she's going to be on the stand or how long is this going to last. Let's bring back our defense attorney and all of our experts. But we'll start, give John Manuelian first crack at this. The length of this trial, jury fatigue and all that. Is that a factor, John, as you look at this case?
I think it's a factor in the sense that the longer Jodi stays on, the more it humanizes her, the more the jurors could relate to her. Remember, I've always said from the beginning of this case, all you need is one juror to identify and sympathize with her. So the longer she's on, the higher the chances that she could get one juror to empathize and possibly deflect the death penalty charge.
Got it. Beth? Is that a positive for her? On one hand, it's 17 days, and you think maybe some jurors are rolling their eyes. But to John's point, could some be connecting and may not want to convict or put her to death?
Absolutely, some could be convicting at a minimum not to put her to death, but I think that she's already reached a point of diminishing returns and that it's hurting her the longer she's on the stand. She should have been on and off the stand and much sooner than this. I mean, she took the stand on February 4th, and she'll still be on the stand on March 13th. Enough already. So if the jurors, keep hearing her, she's starting to contradict herself, keep listening to her, they're going to say, wait a second, she is lying to us, and they're not going to like that, and that will hurt her and be more likely, they'll be more likely to give her death.
Jane, diminishing returns at this point, or still connecting?
I think it depends on the jury. They were told April 11th, so they know that they should be here until that time. I think the Casey Anthony jury had jury fatigue, but I saw their demeanor as different than I see this jury. I think it just depends.
Got it. Hey, Jane, I know you're sticking around, but we also want to know what's coming up tonight, 7 Eastern.
Well, we've got a developing story that we're working on right now. It would appear that some Jodi Arias supporters were asking the question, are they doing something to tarnish the victim, Travis Alexander's reputation? We're going to debunk it. That's tonight at 7. It's a breaking story.
All right, we'll be watching that, and we'll have much more coming up, by the way.
While he continued this facade of being a good and virginal Mormon man, he was inwardly dealing with his own sexual issues. And in Jodi, he found somebody who was easily manipulated and controlled. Someone who would provide him with that secretive sexual relationship that he needed.
Yeah, the Mormon faith has been a backdrop in this case, and both could look bad as you look at this. Early on in the trial, Travis Alexander, the victim here, was not here to defend himself. He's dead, but could have been seen as a hypocrite. And on the other side, Jodi Arias, she looks bad if the jury perceives her as insincere. She's just converted to Mormonism so she can get her man, Travis Alexander. Jane, what do you think of this? Could the Mormon faith and that Mormon backdrop play big in this case?
Well, and we don't know.
I agree. It's amazing.
Oh, Jane, go ahead. Jane first, then
Sorry,
Jane.
That's okay. I always
Sorry.
defer to
Everybody
Gina
wants
Sarah.
it.
She knows a lot more about this case. But let me say this. I think that religion is one of those wild cards, just like sex, and you don't know how it impacts people. My understanding is that we don't know if there's anybody with a Mormon background in that jury. And so who knows what's going on in terms of their experience, not just with religion, but with sex, and what their experience of the combination of those two is. Again, on a logical, linear basis. What's happening to Jodi Arias right now, horrible. If I were her, I'd be rocking in the fetal position in my jail cell, wondering and pondering the implications of those questions. But what about the unconscious mind of the jurors? How is that going to impact their ultimate verdict?
Excellent point. Jane, weigh in.
Well, I think Jane is right. And, you know, so many of the questions from the jury were so pointed. Maybe there are some Mormons on the jury, or at least those that are familiar with the Mormon faith. It's the defense, though, that I think is really going to hone in on the Mormon faith, because they're trying to show, number one, that Travis was not the person he purported to be to the public. There's been testimony that he had said he was a virgin. Obviously, the defense has shown otherwise. And I think also the aspect of the Mormon faith, the defense will say shows the power and control, that 2 months after she met him, she became Mormon. He was temple worthy. He was guiding her in that direction. He told her what they could do and what they couldn't do. And the power and control began with the Mormon faith.
All right, John Manuelian, yes, it could go against Travis Alexander, again, kind of in a victim character assassination, really, when you look at him and the hypocrite that he's given her the Book of Mormon, but yet wants sex. Baptizes her, hours later, wants sex, if you believe the defense's story in all of this. And on the other side is Jodi Arias' insincere beliefs. Do you think it'll play big with all this said?
I think it may turn the jurors off, Mike. She's using the Mormon religion and she's hiding behind it. And I think based on the jurors' questions, it's turning a couple of them off. I mean, she's using this whole thing about, you know, I changed my religion because of Travis and I had control over Travis. But again, using religion in any kind of defense, criminal or otherwise, is usually not a good idea. And again, I think at the end of the day, it's going to backfire on her big time.
Got it. We got about 30 seconds. Beth, weigh in on this one, everybody's opinion.
You know, she said the missionaries started to visit her in the fall of 2006, and she was baptized November 26, 2006, so that was 2 months after meeting Travis Alexander, and that the missionaries didn't really tell her about the vow of chastity, only in broad strokes, but it was Travis who told her there's certain things you can do that are okay and don't break the vow. That's a little hard to swallow. I don't know if jurors will believe it, but, you know, she did characterize it as Bill Clinton-type sex. That was acceptable.
Wow. Okay. All right. Jane, we'll be watching you tonight, 7 Eastern. John, great work. Ryan Smith's going to come in as we hit, guess what? The memory issues. The fog defense. Could that work for Jodi Arias? She can remember the flavored latte and remember the water from Costco, but she can't remember stabbing and killing Travis Alexander. Is that going to fly?